I woke up to the sound of my sister's voice cutting through my bedroom door like a knife. Maya, get up, birthday girl. Mom and Dad have exciting news. My eyes snapped open, and for a moment, the world tilted sideways. I knew that voice. I knew those exact words. I'd heard them before 3 years ago, on the morning that changed everything. But that was impossible. In my last clear memory, I was 17, dying alone in a hospital bed, while my family celebrated Chloe's modeling career launch at some overpriced restaurant downtown. The chemo had stopped working. The experimental treatment I couldn't afford because they'd stolen my college fund remained just out of reach. I died angry, I died betrayed, I died alone, yet here I was, staring at my 14-year-old hands in the pale morning light streaming through my childhood bedroom window. Chloe burst through the door without knocking, exactly as I remembered. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled despite the early hour, her smile bright and predatory. She looked 16 and flawless and utterly convinced of her own importance. Come on, sleepyhead. She bounced onto my bed, her enthusiasm as fake as her spray tan. Mom made your favorite pancakes, and Dad's practically vibrating with excitement about your college fund announcement. College fund. The words hit me like a physical blow. 3 years from now, or 3 years ago, depending on how you counted time when you'd somehow been reborn, that fund would be empty, stolen, invested in Chloe's modeling dreams while I sat in oncology appointments, calculating how many treatments I could afford before I had to choose between medicine and hope. Maya? Chloe's voice carried that edge of impatience I knew so well. You look weird. Are you having one of your spacing out moments again? I forced my face into what I remembered as my old expression. Eager, trusting, pathetically grateful for any attention from my golden sister. Sorry, I'm just... Wow, exciting news about college already? I'm only 14. That's what makes it so smart. Chloe's eyes gleamed. Early planning is everything. Come on, get dressed, wear something nice. Dad wants to take pictures. She bounced out, leaving her sickly sweet perfume lingering in the air. I sat frozen on my bed, my mind reeling. This was real. Somehow, impossibly, I was back. And this time, I knew exactly what was coming. I stumbled to my dresser mirror and stared at my 14-year-old face. Same dark hair, same serious eyes, same pale skin that would one day be ravaged by chemo. But there was something different now, something that hadn't been there in my original timeline. Knowledge, power, and underneath it all, a cold fury that burned like ice. I pressed my palms against the mirror, and something strange happened. A warmth spread through my hands, gentle and unfamiliar. The glass grew warm under my touch, and for just a moment, I could swear I saw a soft glow emanating from my skin. What was this? I pulled my hands away, heart pounding. In my previous life, I'd never had anything like this. Never felt this strange energy humming under my skin. Footsteps in the hallway snapped me back to reality. I needed to get downstairs. I needed to play my part while I figured out what was happening and how I could change everything. This time, I wouldn't be the victim. Downstairs, the scene unfolded exactly as I remembered. Mom had made heart-shaped pancakes, my special birthday breakfast, while Dad paced around the kitchen with barely contained excitement. Chloe sat at the counter, already dressed and camera-ready, filing her nails with studied casualness. There's our birthday girl. Dad swept me into a hug that smelled like coffee and aftershave. 14 years old, can you believe it, honey? Mom beamed at me from the stove, spatula in hand. My baby's growing up so fast. Soon you'll be thinking about college and careers and... Actually, Dad interrupted, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. That's what we wanted to talk about. Chloe had the most amazing idea. I felt that familiar warmth in my hands again, stronger this time. But there was something else, a strange tingling sensation when I looked at Dad. It took me a moment to recognize what I was sensing. His heart. I could feel something wrong with his heart. In my previous timeline, Dad would have his first heart attack when I was 16. A mild one, easily treatable if caught early. But right now, I could sense the arterial narrowing. the irregular rhythm he didn't even know he had. How was this possible? Maya, Chloe's voice cut through my thoughts. Dad's talking to you. I focused on his face, forcing myself to smile. Sorry, this is so exciting I can barely think straight. Dad chuckled and ruffled my hair. That's my girl, always the dreamer. But this is about turning dreams into reality. He sat down across from me, his expression shifting to serious parent mode. You know how much we've been saving for your college education. Every birthday, every Christmas, every little bit we could put aside. I nodded, remembering the jar on his desk labeled Maya's future, that had seemed so important, so sacred. The jar they'd emptied for Chloe without a second thought. Well, Dad continued, Chloe pointed out something really smart. College is still 4 years away for you, but she has an opportunity right now that could benefit our whole family. Here it comes. Chloe leaned forward, her practiced expression of concern sliding into place. I've been thinking about how hard Mom and Dad work, how much they sacrifice for us. And I realized, what if there was a way to grow your college money while also jump-starting my career? She reached over and took my hand, her touch cool and calculating. There's this amazing modeling opportunity. A real agency wants to represent me, but they need an investment up front. Portfolio shots, professional training, marketing materials. It's expensive, but Maya, she squeezed my fingers, they're projecting I could earn back triple the investment within the first year. Triple, Dad repeated, eyes shining. Imagine that, Maya. Instead of just sitting in a college fund earning minimal interest, your money could be actively growing. Mom set a plate of pancakes in front of me, her smile uncertain. Of course, it would still be your money, sweetheart. Chloe would pay it all back with interest before you graduate high school. I stared down at the heart-shaped pancakes, syrup pooling in golden circles. In my previous life, I'd been so desperate to help, so eager to be part of the family's excitement. I'd said yes immediately, practically glowing with the idea that I could contribute to Chloe's success. What a fool I'd been. I know it sounds complicated, Chloe said, her voice taking on that wheedling tone I now recognized as manipulation. And I know you were probably imagining your college fund just sitting safely in the bank until you need it. But Maya, this is about being smart with money, about thinking strategically. She paused, then delivered the line I remembered like a slap. Besides, you've always been more of a dreamer than a planner. This way, the adults can handle the complicated financial stuff while you focus on, I don't know, your art projects or whatever. My art projects? As if my dreams were just childish scribbles. In my previous life, those words had stung, but I'd swallowed the hurt and agreed anyway. Anything to prove I could be helpful, that I could be part of the family's success story. Now I felt that strange warmth in my hands intensify. The syrup on my pancakes actually began to steam. Maya? Mom's voice was gentle. What do you think, honey? I looked up at their faces, Dad eager and hopeful, Mom worried but trying to hide it, Chloe wearing that perfect mask of sisterly concern while her eyes calculated dollar signs. In my previous life, I'd said yes. I'd handed over my future with a smile and a hug, so grateful to be included. This time, I smiled just as brightly. It sounds amazing. The relief in the room was palpable. Dad clapped his hands together. Mom's shoulders relaxed. Chloe's grin turned triumphant. But, I continued, my voice still sweet and innocent, maybe we should talk to a financial advisor first, just to make sure we're doing everything legally and properly. Chloe's smile faltered for just a second. Maya, we're family. We don't need some stranger telling us how to handle family business. Of course not, I agreed quickly. I just thought, if this investment is as good as it sounds, shouldn't we document everything properly? You know, contracts and payment schedules and stuff. That way, everyone's protected. Dad looked thoughtful. She's got a point. If this is a real business opportunity, It is, Chloe interrupted. God, Maya, do you not trust me? I widened my eyes, letting them fill with tears. Of course I trust you. I've been reading about financial planning online, and they always say to get everything in writing, even between family members. It was a lie, of course. 14-year-old Maya had never read about financial planning, but I needed to plant seeds of caution to slow down the theft just enough to gather evidence. That's very mature of you, sweetheart, Mom said, looking proud. Maybe we should. Fine, Chloe snapped, then caught herself and forced her smile back into place. I mean, of course. We'll get everything documented properly. I want you to feel totally comfortable with this, Maya. She leaned over and hugged me, her arms tight around my shoulders. To anyone watching, it looked like sisterly affection. You're going to thank me for this someday, she whispered in my ear, her voice so low only I could hear. When you see how much smarter I am with money than you'll ever be. I hugged her back, my face buried in her shoulder so no one could see my expression. I'm sure I will, I whispered back, but my hands were growing warm again, that strange energy humming under my skin. And for the first time, since waking up in this impossible second chance, I felt something other than confusion and rage. I felt power. Later that evening, alone in my room, I sat at my desk and stared at my hands. The warmth was still there, just under the surface, waiting. I thought about Dad's heart condition, about how I'd sensed it so clearly. I thought about the pancake syrup steaming under my touch, about the glow I'd seen in the mirror. Whatever had happened to me, rebirth, time travel, some cosmic second chance, it had given me more than just memories. It had given me something new. I pressed my palms against the surface of my desk, concentrating on that warm feeling. The wood grew hot under my touch, and I could swear I saw a faint golden light emanating from my skin. Healing. Somehow, I had the ability to heal. In my previous life, I died from cancer, powerless and abandoned. But this time, I wouldn't just survive, and I would thrive. And everyone who had betrayed me would learn exactly what they'd lost. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a student of my own family's betrayal. Every morning, I practiced with my strange new abilities in the privacy of my bedroom. I'd press my hands against wilted flowers from Mom's garden and watch them straighten and bloom. I'd touch small cuts on my fingers and feel them seal and heal within minutes. The warmth that flowed through me was intoxicating, power I'd never possessed in my previous life. But more importantly, I was learning to control it, to hide it. I couldn't let anyone discover what I could do, not yet. Downstairs, the college fund conversations continued with increasing frequency. Dad had scheduled meetings with financial advisors, just as I'd suggested, but Chloe was working overtime to undermine the idea. Maya's being so paranoid about this, she complained to Mom while I pretended to do homework at the kitchen table. It's like she doesn't trust her own family. She's just being cautious, Mom replied, but her voice held that familiar note of doubt. Maybe we should listen to her concerns. Chloe sighed dramatically. Mom, Maya's 14. She doesn't understand how investments work. She probably thinks money just sits in banks forever, earning like 2% interest. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Besides, you know how she gets about changes. Remember when we rearranged the living room? She cried for a week. I bit my pen to keep from reacting. That had been when I was 8, devastated because they'd thrown away my art supplies to make room for Chloe's trophy case. But, of course, Chloe remembered it as me being unreasonably emotional about furniture. The modeling agency called again? Chloe continued. They need an answer by Friday or the opportunity goes to someone else. Every day we wait, Maya's money is just sitting there doing nothing. I made a note in my math homework. Research agency. Verify legitimacy. That afternoon, I rode my bike to the public library and spent 3 hours on the computers. The modeling agency Chloe had mentioned? It existed technically. But a deeper dive into industry forums revealed a pattern of complaints about upfront fees, promises that never materialized, and students who graduated with expensive portfolios but no actual work. I printed everything and tucked it into my backpack. Evidence for later. At dinner that night, Dad brought up the financial advisor meeting scheduled for Saturday. I think it's smart, he said, cutting into his chicken. If this investment is as good as Chloe says, a professional can help us structure it properly. Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. Dad, I told you the agency needs an answer by Friday. We can't wait until Saturday. Then maybe this isn't the right opportunity, Dad replied mildly. I watched Chloe's face cycle through emotions: frustration, calculation, then strategic vulnerability. Her eyes actually filled with tears. I just, I thought you believed in me, she whispered. This could change everything for our family. But if Maya wants to keep her money locked away where it can't help anyone? She trailed off, looking wounded and brave. It was a masterful performance. Mom reached over and squeezed Chloe's hand. Of course we believe in you, sweetheart. Do we? Chloe's voice was small, broken. Because it feels like you're choosing Maya's paranoia over my dreams. I felt that familiar warmth building in my hands and carefully placed them in my lap. Under the table, I pressed my palms against my thighs and focused on staying calm. It's not paranoia, I said quietly. I just want to make sure everything's legal and proper. For your protection too, Chloe. She turned to me with those wide, wounded eyes. Maya, do you really think I would do anything to hurt you? The question hung in the air. Mom and Dad watched us both, waiting for my answer. In my previous life, I'd crumbled at this moment, apologized for doubting her, agreed to sign over the money immediately. This time, I smiled sadly. Of course not. But bad people might try to take advantage of you, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen. It was perfect, expressing concern for Chloe while maintaining my position. Dad nodded approvingly. That's very thoughtful, Maya, he said. The meeting stays scheduled for Saturday. Chloe's expression flickered with something ugly before she caught herself. Fine, but if we lose this opportunity because of delays... She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. It would be my fault. After dinner, I helped Mom with dishes while Chloe disappeared upstairs to make important phone calls. Within minutes, I could hear her voice through the ceiling, sharp and angry. No, I don't know why she's being so difficult. She's always been weird about money. Of course I can convince her, but I need more time. I smiled as I dried a plate. Let her scramble. The next day at school, I put phase 2 of my plan into motion. I'd never paid much attention to my classmates in my previous life. Too shy, too focused on just getting through each day. But now I had the gift of hindsight and a specific mission. During lunch, I approached Sarah Chen, whose mother worked as a forensic accountant for the state. Sarah and I had never been friends before, but I remembered her as kind and smart. Hey, Sarah, I said, sitting down across from her in the cafeteria. Can I ask you something kind of random? She looked up from her sandwich, surprised. Sure. Your mom's an accountant, right? Like she investigates financial crimes? Sarah's eyebrows rose. Yeah, she's a forensic accountant. Why? I bit my lip, channeling my old uncertainty. My family's thinking about making this investment, and I'm worried it might be, I don't know, not legitimate. Is there a way to check if a company is real without, hiring a private investigator? Oh, totally. Sarah pulled out her phone. My mom taught me some basic stuff. What's the company name? I told her about Chloe's modeling agency, and Sarah's fingers flew across her screen. She said after a few minutes. This is interesting. The agency exists, but it was only incorporated 6 months ago, and look at this. She showed me her phone. The address they list is actually a shared office space, like the kind where you rent a desk by the hour. My heart raced, but I kept my expression worried rather than triumphant. That doesn't sound good. Not necessarily bad either, Sarah said fairly. Lots of small businesses start that way, but she scrolled through more results. I'm seeing some complaints on business review sites. People saying they paid for services that were never delivered. Could you maybe print some of this stuff out for me? I asked. I want to show my parents, but I don't want them to think I'm just trying to sabotage my sister. Sarah looked at me with new respect. That's really mature of you. Most people our age wouldn't think to research stuff like this. If only she knew. That afternoon, armed with Sarah's research, I made my next move. Instead of confronting my family directly, I left the printed articles on Dad's desk, along with a note. Found this while researching the agency. Thought you should see it. Maya. At dinner, Dad was quieter than usual. When Chloe brought up the investment again, the agency's final deadline, he surprised everyone. I called the agency today, he said, asked to speak with some of their successful clients. Chloe went very still. And? They said client information was confidential. When I explained I was considering a significant investment, they offered to send me testimonials. Dad's expression was grim. Written testimonials. No contact information, no way to verify they're real. And Dad, that's totally normal. I also drove by their office address. Dad's voice was getting harder. It's a strip mall, Chloe. A mailbox service and shared workspace. Chloe's face was cycling through emotions too quickly to track. Lots of agencies start small. The Better Business Bureau has 17 complaints filed against them in the past 6 months. The silence that followed was deafening. I'm canceling the Saturday meeting, Dad continued. This investment is off the table. Chloe's mask finally slipped completely. You're ruining my life, she screamed. This was my chance, and you're destroying it because of some stupid internet rumors. Chloe, Mom started. No! Chloe turned on me, her face twisted with rage. This is all your fault, Maya. You poisoned them against me with your paranoid research. You're so jealous that you'd rather keep your precious money locked away than help your own sister succeed. The accusation hit like a physical blow. In my previous life, I would have dissolved into tears, apologized, maybe even changed my mind about the whole thing. Instead, I felt that warmth building in my hands again, stronger than ever before. The water in my glass actually started to bubble. I'm not jealous, I said quietly. I'm protective. Of you and of our family. If this agency is legitimate, they'll understand why we need to be careful. If they're not, I shrugged. Then we just saved ourselves from being scammed. Chloe stared at me like she'd never seen me before, which, in a way, she hadn't. You've changed, she said, her voice cold. You used to trust me. I still trust you, I replied. I don't trust them. It was a careful distinction, one that let me maintain my position while avoiding a direct attack on Chloe. But I could see in her eyes that she wasn't buying it. Good. Let her start to worry. That night, I lay in bed listening to Chloe's muffled phone conversations through the wall. Her voice was getting more desperate, more shrill. She was running out of time and options, and she knew it. But I wasn't done yet. Over the weekend, I volunteered to help Mom with grocery shopping, something I'd never shown interest in before. At the store, I struck up a conversation with Mrs. Rodriguez, whose daughter, Carmen, was in my grade. Oh, Maya! Mrs. Rodriguez smiled warmly. Carmen tells me you're thinking about pre-med tracks in high school. That's wonderful. I blinked, surprised. I'd never mentioned pre-med to Carmen, but then I remembered, in my previous life, before the cancer, I'd dreamed of becoming a doctor. I must have mentioned it to someone who told someone else. I'm really interested in healing, I said carefully. Maybe research or working directly with patients. You should talk to Dr. Martinez at the community clinic, Mrs. Rodriguez said. He sometimes takes on young volunteers for basic administrative work. Great way to get experience. My heart leaped. A clinic where I could practice my abilities, learn medicine, build connections. That sounds amazing, I said. Would it be weird if I just called him? Not at all. He loves working with motivated young people. Tell him I referred you. By Monday morning, I had an interview scheduled for the following weekend. A part-time volunteer position that would put me exactly where I needed to be. At breakfast, I mentioned it casually. I might volunteer at the community clinic on weekends, just filing papers and stuff. But Dr. Martinez said I could observe some patient interactions if I'm interested in medicine. Dad beamed. That's fantastic, Maya. Really taking charge of your future. Chloe, still sulking from the failed investment, barely looked up from her cereal. Whatever. Don't expect me to drive you there. I wouldn't dream of it, I replied sweetly. But under the table, my hands were warm with more than just satisfaction. They were warm with power, with potential, with the promise of everything I was going to build. I was no longer the weak, trusting girl who died alone in a hospital bed. I was someone entirely new, and I was just getting started. The modeling agency setback sent Chloe into a tailspin, but I knew my sister better than she realized. She wouldn't give up. She'd just get more creative and more desperate. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days after Dad's investigation killed her first scheme, Chloe came to my room with a new approach. Maya, she said, perching on my bed with studied casualness, I've been thinking about what happened with that agency. I looked up from my biology textbook. I'd been studying cellular regeneration, fascinated by how it might relate to my healing abilities. Oh? You were right to be cautious. The admission clearly cost her. I should have researched them better myself. I waited, knowing there was more coming. But Maya, just because that one agency was sketchy doesn't mean all opportunities are bad, right? She twisted a strand of her blonde hair around her finger. I mean, you still want to help me succeed, don't you? Of course, I said, closing my textbook. You're my sister. Relief flooded her face. Good, because I found something better, much better. She pulled out her phone and showed me a website for something called Elite Model Management and Talent Development. The photos were glossy, professional, the testimonials glowing. This is a real company, Chloe said eagerly, established 15 years ago. They've launched dozens of successful careers, and Maya, they want to meet me. I studied the website carefully. Unlike the previous agency, this one looked legitimate. Professional address, detailed portfolio of successful clients, proper business registration. They want to meet you, I asked. They saw my Instagram and reached out directly. Can you believe it? They said I have exactly the look they're seeking for their new campaign. Chloe's excitement was genuine, infectious. The only thing is, they want to start immediately, like this weekend. I felt a familiar chill. This weekend? I know it's fast, but Maya, opportunities like this don't wait. They need headshots, portfolio development, professional coaching. She leaned forward, her eyes bright. It's a big investment up front, but they're guaranteeing paid bookings within 90 days. How big an investment? $25,000. My heart stopped. That was more than half my college fund. More than she'd asked for with the fake agency. Chloe, that's a lot of money. I know it sounds like a lot, but think about it. I'll be earning it back in 3 months, plus profit. And this time, I have a real contract with real guarantees. She pulled out several pages of official-looking documents. See, everything in writing, just like you wanted. I took the papers, scanning them quickly. They looked legitimate, professional letterhead, detailed terms, proper legal language. But something felt wrong. Can I think about it? I asked. Chloe's face fell. Maya, they need an answer by tomorrow. If I don't commit, they'll move on to someone else. Tomorrow? But please. Chloe grabbed my hands, her eyes filling with tears. I know I messed up with the first agency. I know I should have listened to you from the beginning. But this is different. This is real. She was good. Even knowing what she was capable of, I almost believed her. Okay, I said slowly. Let me talk to Mom and Dad. No. The word exploded out of her, then she caught herself. I mean, not yet. Let me handle Mom and Dad. You know how they get when money's involved. But if you say yes first, if you trust me, then I know I can convince them. I stared at her, seeing the desperation beneath the performance. In my previous life, this was when I'd caved. When I'd agreed to trust her, to help her, to sacrifice my future for her dreams. Not this time, but she didn't need to know that yet. Okay, I whispered, I trust you. The relief on Chloe's face was beautiful and terrible. She threw her arms around me, hugging me tight. Thank you, Maya. You won't regret this, I promise. I'm going to make so much money, I'll pay you back triple. Over her shoulder, I smiled. She had no idea what she'd just agreed to. That night, I spent hours researching elite model management. Unlike the previous agency, they were completely legitimate. Established business, real address, actual success stories. But I dug deeper. Their business model was simple. They charged significant upfront fees for portfolio development and professional training, then worked to place clients in paid assignments. The contracts were structured to protect the agency. They guaranteed opportunities but not bookings, and their fee was non-refundable regardless of outcomes. It wasn't a scam, it was just a terrible investment. Looking at their client roster, I found a troubling pattern. Yes, some clients succeeded, but they were the ones who came in already possessing the look, talent, and connections needed to succeed anywhere. The agency took credit for their success while collecting fees from hundreds of hopefuls who never booked a single paid job. Chloe would be one of the hopefuls, but I had a better idea. The next morning, I cornered Dad before breakfast. Dad, can I ask you something about investing? He looked up from his coffee, pleased. Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? If someone wanted to invest money for a guaranteed return, how would they do it? Like if they had $25,000 and wanted to make sure it grew safely. Dad's financial advisor instincts kicked in immediately. Well, there are several safe options. Treasury bonds, CDs, even a diversified index fund. Why? I bit my lip, channeling uncertainty. I've been reading about compound interest, and I was thinking, what if instead of just leaving my college fund sitting there, I invested part of it? Nothing risky, just something that would grow safely over the next 4 years. Dad's face lit up. Maya, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. At your age, even conservative investments could significantly increase your college fund by the time you graduate. Really? Really. We could set up a custodial investment account, put the money in safe, diversified funds, and by the time you're 18, you could have 50% more than you started with. I did quick math in my head, pretending to think it through. So 25,000 could become 37,000? Possibly more, depending on market performance. Maya, this shows real financial maturity. I beamed at him. Could we do it this weekend? I'm really excited about this. Absolutely. I'll call my broker this morning. Perfect. At breakfast, I mentioned my investment idea casually. Dad's going to help me invest part of my college fund in safe stocks and bonds. He says I could earn thousands of dollars just by being smart about it. Mom looked impressed. That's wonderful, Maya. Very mature thinking. Chloe's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Wait, what? You're investing your college fund? Just part of it, I said innocently. Dad says it's the smart thing to do. But what about... She looked around the table wildly. What about helping family? What about opportunities that could benefit everyone? What opportunities? Dad asked, frowning. Chloe opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't reveal her plan without looking like she was trying to manipulate me. Nothing, she said weakly. I thought Maya wanted to keep her money safe. She is keeping it safe, Dad said, and growing it smartly. I'm proud of her for thinking ahead like this. I watched Chloe's face crumble as she realized her window was closing. She'd been counting on using my college fund announcement to pressure me into her modeling scheme. Instead, I'd made my own announcement first, trapping her. Actually, I said, as if the thought had just occurred to me. Chloe, didn't you mention some kind of modeling opportunity yesterday? Maybe Dad could help you figure out if it's a good investment, too. Chloe shot me a look of pure panic. It's not really an investment, more like a career opportunity. Oh, I tilted my head innocently. What kind of career opportunity? She was trapped. Either she revealed her plan and looked manipulative, or she stayed silent and lost her chance entirely. There's this agency, she said finally. They want to represent me, but they need some upfront money for professional development. Dad's expression immediately sharpened. How much money? 25,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Chloe, Dad said slowly, that's exactly the amount Maya was planning to invest. It's a coincidence. Is it? His voice was getting harder. Because it sounds like you were planning to ask Maya to fund your modeling career instead of her education. Dad, it's not like that. Then what is it like? Mom's voice was cold. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were trying to manipulate your sister into giving up her college money for your benefit. Chloe's face was red, her eyes bright with tears. I was going to pay it back with interest. It would have helped everyone. By risking Maya's entire educational future on your modeling career? Dad stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. Chloe, I'm disappointed in you. Deeply disappointed. But Dad, no. This conversation is over. Maya's college fund is off limits. Permanently. Chloe turned to me, her expression desperate. Maya, please. Tell them you want to help me. Tell them it was your idea too. I looked at her for a long moment, letting her hope build. Then I shook my head. I'm sorry, Chloe, but I think Dad's right. My college fund should be for college. The betrayal in her eyes was beautiful, but I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, while Chloe was locked in her room making frantic phone calls, I made some calls of my own. Elite Model Management, this is Jessica. Hi, I said, pitching my voice high and nervous. My sister was supposed to meet with you guys about representation, but she's having second thoughts. Could you maybe explain your fee structure? She's worried about the upfront costs. Of course. What's your sister's name? Chloe Martinez. Oh, yes, Chloe. We're very excited about working with her. The investment is $25,000, but that covers everything. Professional photography, portfolio development, media training, and our guarantee of booking opportunities within 90 days. Guarantee? I asked. Like you guarantee she'll get paid jobs? We guarantee we'll present her for paid opportunities. Booking depends on client preferences, but we have an excellent track record. And if she doesn't book anything? There was a pause. Well, our fee covers the professional development services regardless of booking outcomes. It's non-refundable. I see. And how many of your clients actually book paying jobs? Another pause, longer this time. I'm not sure I have those exact statistics available, but we work very hard for all our clients. Could you send me some references, other clients who've worked with you? I'm sorry, but client information is confidential. I hung up, smiling. Just as I'd suspected, legitimate business, terrible investment. But now for the real trap. I called back using a different voice. Elite Model Management, this is Jessica. Hi, this is Chloe Martinez. I'm supposed to meet with you tomorrow about representation. Chloe, yes, we're so excited. Do you have your investment ready? Actually, I have some questions about your success rates. Could you give me some statistics about client bookings? The line went quiet. What kind of statistics? How many clients book paying jobs within the first year? What's the average income for your represented models? How many of your clients have gone on to major campaigns? Miss Martinez, I think those questions would be better addressed in person. I'm just trying to make an informed decision. Surely you track success metrics? Of course we do, but great. Could you email me those statistics? I'd like to review them before our meeting. Another long pause. I'll need to check with my supervisor about what information we can share. No problem. I'll wait to hear from you before making any commitments. I hung up, knowing I'd never hear back. Agencies like this relied on pressure and urgency, not data and transparency. Sure enough, 2 hours later, Chloe burst into my room, face streaked with tears. They canceled, she said. The agency canceled my meeting. I looked up from my homework, feigning surprise. What? Why? They said I seemed uncommitted to the process and they were moving forward with other candidates. She collapsed onto my bed, sobbing. Maya, I lost everything. My chance, my future, everything. I sat down beside her, putting my arm around her shoulders. I'm sorry, Chloe, that really sucks. You don't understand, she choked out. This was my shot. My one real shot at making something of myself. There will be other opportunities. No, she pulled away from me, her eyes wild. There won't be. I'm getting older, Maya. In this industry, every year matters, every month matters, and I just lost my chance because I couldn't come up with $25,000 fast enough. She stared at me, her expression shifting from despair to something harder. $25,000 that you have just sitting in a bank account, earning basically nothing. Chloe, you could have helped me. You could have made this possible. But instead, you chose to play it safe with your precious college fund. Her voice was getting sharper, more venomous. Do you know what's going to happen to that money, Maya? You're going to spend it on some boring degree that leads to some boring job where you make 40,000 a year for the rest of your life. Congratulations. I felt that familiar warmth building in my hands, but this time I didn't try to suppress it. I let it build, let it flow through me like liquid fire. You're probably right, I said quietly, but it's my choice to make. Is it? Chloe's eyes were bright with malice now. Or is it just fear? You're scared, Maya, scared of taking risks, scared of betting on people, scared of everything that isn't safe and predictable and boring. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You know what I think? I think you're jealous. Jealous that I'm brave enough to chase my dreams while you hide behind your books and your plans and your safe little future. In my previous life, those words would have destroyed me, would have sent me running to her, apologizing, offering my money just to prove I wasn't jealous or scared. This time, I smiled. Maybe you're right, I said, but I'd rather be jealous and boring than desperate and broke. Chloe recoiled like I'd slapped her. You've really changed, she said finally. You used to be sweet, kind. Now you're just cold. Maybe I'm finally growing up. She stared at me for another long moment and stood up and walked to the door. This isn't over, she said without turning around. Family takes care of family, Maya, one way or another. After she left, I sat on my bed, my hands still warm with power. But this time, the warmth felt different. Not just healing energy, but something deeper. Satisfaction and justice. The first move in my revenge was complete. Chloe had shown her true colors, revealed her willingness to manipulate, and guilt me into sacrificing my future for her dreams. And now everyone had seen it. But more importantly, she was starting to panic, starting to make mistakes, and I was just getting started. That weekend, I went with Dad to set up my investment account. As we signed the paperwork, he put his hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Maya. You handled that situation with Chloe very maturely. Thanks, Dad. I just want you to know your college fund is yours. No matter what anyone says, no matter how much pressure anyone puts on you, that money is for your education. Period. I nodded, but internally I was thinking about my previous life, about how easily they'd all forgotten that promise when Chloe turned up the heat. This time would be different. This time I had power, and I intended to use it. The atmosphere in our house changed after Chloe's modeling dreams crumbled. She moved through our home like a ghost, silent at dinner, avoiding family gatherings, spending hours locked in her room. When she did speak, her words carried barbs meant to draw blood. Maya's so proud of her little investment portfolio, she'd say when Dad asked about college plans. Playing it safe while opportunities pass her by? Or when Mom praised my volunteer work at the clinic? It's easy to look responsible when you don't have any real ambitions. I absorbed her hostility like a sponge, saying nothing, letting everyone see how patient and mature I was being while Chloe revealed her true nature. But I knew she wasn't done. Chloe never accepted defeat gracefully. My volunteer work at Dr. Martinez's clinic was everything I'd hoped for. 3 afternoons a week, I filed paperwork, updated patient records, and observed basic medical procedures. More importantly, I was learning to use my healing abilities carefully, subtly. A child with a persistent cough would find their symptoms mysteriously improved after I handed them their intake forms. An elderly man's arthritis would ease after I helped him fill out his paperwork. Nothing dramatic enough to draw attention. Just the kind of inexplicable improvements that made patients praise Dr. Martinez's excellent care. You have real instincts for this work, Dr. Martinez told me one afternoon. Have you considered accelerated pre-med programs? With your grades and dedication, you could be in medical school by 20. My heart soared. In my previous life, I'd never had the confidence to aim so high. Now, with the knowledge of my abilities and the strategic advantage of my memories, anything seemed possible. I'd love that, I said honestly. But the costs? There are scholarships, Maya, full rides for students with your potential. Let me make some calls. That evening, I floated home on a cloud of possibility. Medical school at 20. My healing abilities hidden in plain sight. A future where I could save lives instead of losing my own. Chloe was waiting in my room. We need to talk, she said, her voice unnaturally calm. She was sitting at my desk, my laptop open in front of her. My stomach dropped as I saw what was on the screen. My investment account, showing the $25,000 I'd moved from my college fund. Interesting reading, Chloe said, not looking up. You know, when you left your laptop open, I couldn't help but notice you'd been checking your account balance. A lot. I closed my bedroom door carefully. That's private, Chloe. Is it? She swiveled in my chair to face me. Because I'm looking at $25,000 that used to be for college. Money that you supposedly needed to keep safe for your education. It's still for college. It's in a brokerage account, Maya, in stocks. Risky, volatile stocks that could lose half their value tomorrow. Her smile was sharp as a blade. That doesn't sound very safe to me. I felt that familiar warmth building in my hands. What do you want, Chloe? I want what I've always wanted, for you to help your family. She stood up, moving closer. See, I've been doing some research of my own. That modeling agency that canceled on me? Turns out they never cancel on anyone, not if the money's guaranteed. My heart started racing, but I kept my face neutral. What are you talking about? I'm talking about someone calling them, pretending to be me, asking detailed questions they couldn't answer. Questions that made them think I was going to be a difficult client. Chloe's eyes were bright with malice. Someone who knew exactly what to ask to make them back out. I shrugged. Maybe they just realized you weren't right for them. Cut the act, Maya. We both know you sabotaged me. She pulled out her phone, showing me a recording app. The question is, do Mom and Dad know how manipulative their sweet little Maya really is? A chill ran through me. In my previous life, I'd never seen this side of Chloe, the calculating predator who emerged when cornered. She'd never needed to be this desperate before. That's an interesting theory, I said carefully. But you can't prove anything. Can't I? Chloe's smile widened. Because I've been keeping track of some interesting coincidences. The first modeling agency that turned out to be fraudulent, I checked their complaint history. Guess when most of those complaints were filed? Right after I told you their name. My blood went cold. And then there's your sudden interest in investing. Very convenient timing, right when I needed exactly that amount of money. She stepped closer. Plus, I talked to Sarah Chen today. Asked her about research techniques her forensic accountant mom taught her. Sarah was very helpful. Very chatty about how she helped a classmate investigate a modeling agency. I was trapped. Chloe had connected too many dots, and now she had leverage. What do you want? I asked again. Simple. You're going to liquidate that investment account, and you're going to help me start my own business. Chloe sat back down, crossing her legs like she was settling in for a negotiation. I've been thinking about this wrong. Instead of depending on agencies, I should be building my own brand. Influencer marketing, sponsored content, maybe even my own product line. And you need my money for that? I need startup capital. $25,000 should be enough to get me launched properly. Professional photos, website development, marketing budget, sample products. She leaned forward. The beauty is, this time it really is a smart investment. Influencer marketing is exploding. I could be making 6 figures within a year. I stared at her, seeing the delusion beneath the calculation. Chloe genuinely believed she was destined for fame and fortune. She just needed the right vehicle to get there. And if I say no, then I tell Mom and Dad exactly how their precious Maya has been manipulating everyone. How you sabotaged your own sister's dreams out of jealousy. How you've been lying and scheming while pretending to be the mature, responsible one. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I wonder how proud they'll be of you then. In my previous life, this threat would have crushed me. The idea of disappointing my parents, of them seeing me as manipulative and cruel, would have been unbearable. But I'd already lived through their ultimate betrayal. I'd already experienced their willingness to sacrifice me for Chloe's benefit. And this time, I had power they couldn't imagine. You know what, Chloe? I said, sitting down on my bed. Go ahead. Her confident expression faltered. What? Tell them. Tell them everything you think you figured out. I leaned back against my pillows, genuinely relaxed for the first time since she'd ambushed me. I'm curious to see how that conversation goes. Maya, I'm serious. So am I. Tell them I sabotaged your modeling career by doing research that revealed the first agency was fraudulent. Tell them I somehow forced you to approach agencies that require upfront payments. Tell them I manipulated you into asking for my college fund instead of finding legitimate opportunities or getting a job like a normal person. Chloe's face was getting red. You think they won't believe me? I think they'll ask for proof. And when you can't provide any because you don't have any, they'll see this for what it really is. You trying to guilt and blackmail me into funding your lifestyle. I stood up and walked to my laptop, closing it with a definitive snap. But here's what I'm really curious about, Chloe. When mom and dad ask why you're so desperate for my money specifically, what are you going to tell them? That you've never considered getting a job? That you think you're too good for community college or trade school? That your 17-year-old sister should sacrifice her education to fund your Instagram career? It's not Instagram. What is it then? Specifically, what's your business plan? What's your target market? What's your projected revenue timeline? I tilted my head. Because if you're asking me to invest $25,000, I'm going to need to see some actual business planning, not just influencer marketing is exploding. Chloe opened her mouth, then closed it. Her entire scheme was built on entitlement and assumption, not actual planning. You don't have a plan, I said softly. You just want my money. I want our family to support each other, she exploded. I want you to stop being so selfish and help me succeed. Help you how? By giving you money with no strings attached? By sacrificing my future for your dreams? I shook my head. That's not support, Chloe. That's enabling. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. What happened to you? You used to be so sweet, so caring. I grew up. I opened my bedroom door. And I learned the difference between helping someone and being taken advantage of. Chloe didn't move. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I met her eyes steadily. Because tomorrow, I'm going to tell mom and dad about this conversation. About how you broke into my laptop. About your blackmail attempt. About your demand for my college fund. I'm going to show them that my investment account is performing well and that I'm being responsible with my money. They won't believe you. They will, because I'm not the one who's been lying and scheming. I'm not the one who's been manipulating and making demands. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. I'm the one who's been working hard, making good choices, and planning for the future. Chloe finally stood up, her face twisted with rage. You're going to regret this, Maya. Family is supposed to stick together, and you're choosing money over blood. No, I said quietly, I'm choosing self-respect over manipulation. There's a difference. After she left, I sat on my bed and let the magnitude of what had just happened wash over me. Chloe had shown her hand completely, revealed the depths of her entitlement, her willingness to blackmail and manipulate, her complete lack of genuine planning or ambition beyond taking my money. But more importantly, I'd stood up to her. I'd called her bluff and won. My hands were warm with more than just healing energy. They were warm with power, with confidence, with the knowledge that I was no longer the weak, desperate girl from my previous life. The next morning, I kept my promise. Over breakfast with the whole family present, I calmly recounted Chloe's attempt to access my financial information and her demand for my college fund. She what? Dad's voice was dangerously quiet. She hacked into Maya's laptop? Mom looked horrified. Chloe tried to defend herself, but her explanations sounded increasingly desperate. Yes, she'd looked at my computer, but only because she was worried about my risky investments. Yes, she'd suggested I help her start a business, but only because she wanted to pay me back with interest. What kind of business? Dad asked. Influencer marketing, Chloe mumbled. Do you have a business plan? I'm working on it. Market research, financial projections, competitive analysis. Chloe's silence was answer enough. Dad turned to me. Maya, show me your investment account. I pulled up my portfolio on my phone. In the 3 weeks since I'd invested, the diversified index funds had already grown by nearly 4%. My 25,000 was now worth almost 26,000. This is excellent work, Dad said, studying the numbers. Conservative but smart choices. You're earning more in a month than you would in a year with a traditional savings account. He looked at Chloe, his expression disappointed. And you wanted her to liquidate this to fund your influencer career? It's not just influencer. Chloe! Mom's voice was sharp. You accessed your sister's private financial information without permission. You demanded she sacrifice her education fund for your benefit. And when she refused, you tried to blackmail her. I wasn't blackmailing. What would you call it? Dad asked. Chloe looked around the table desperately, but found no allies. Her manipulation had finally been exposed, and there was no talking her way out of it. I want to succeed, she said finally, her voice small. I want to make something of myself. Then get a job, Dad said firmly. Earn your own money, build your own future, but you are not using Maya's education fund as your personal startup capital. That evening, Chloe didn't come down for dinner. Mom brought a plate to her room, but it came back untouched. I found her on the back porch after dark, staring out at the yard with red-rimmed eyes. I know you hate me now, she said without looking at me. I sat down beside her on the porch swing. I don't hate you, Chloe. Then why won't you help me? I thought about how to answer that. In my previous life, I had helped her. I'd given her everything she asked for, sacrificed everything she demanded. And in return, she'd left me to die alone. Because helping you would be hurting you, I said finally, and it would definitely be hurting me. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't it? What happens if I give you $25,000 and your influencer business fails? Do you pay me back from your minimum wage job? Do you get another loan from somewhere else? Or do you come back to me asking for more? Chloe didn't answer, but her silence was telling. And what happens to me? I have used my college fund to pay for your dreams instead of my education. I'm stuck with debt or limited options while you're still chasing the next get-rich-quick scheme. It's not get-rich-quick. Then prove it. Build your business with your own money. Show me, show everyone, that you're serious enough to invest in yourself before asking others to invest in you. Chloe finally looked at me. You really have changed. Yes, I have. I don't like it. I know. We sat in silence for a while, the night air cooling around us. In my previous life, this conversation would have ended with tears and apologies, with me promising to reconsider, with Chloe slowly working her way back toward my college fund. This time, I had no intention of giving in. I'm getting a job, Chloe said finally. Good. And I'm going to save up for my own business. That's smart. And I'm never going to ask you for money again. I turned to look at her, seeing something I'd never seen before, actual determination instead of just entitlement. I hope that's true, I said. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Chloe was desperate, humiliated, and running out of options. People like that didn't just give up. They got dangerous. As I lay in bed that night, my hands warm with healing energy, I found myself looking forward to whatever came next. Let Chloe scheme and plot and manipulate. I had power now, and I was ready to use it. 3 months later, everything changed. I'd been working at Dr. Martinez's clinic consistently, and my instincts for patient care had begun attracting attention beyond our small community. Word spread about the mysterious improvement rates among patients I'd interacted with. Nothing dramatic enough to raise suspicion, but statistically significant enough to intrigue medical professionals. That's how Dr. Sarah Kim from the State University's Medical Research Department found me. Maya Martinez? She approached me after school one Tuesday, her expression professional but curious. I'm Dr. Kim from the University Hospital. I'd like to talk to you about some interesting patterns we've noticed in patient outcomes at Dr. Martinez's clinic. My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. Patterns. Recovery rates, pain management, healing times. She studied my face carefully. Specifically, cases where you've had direct patient contact. I'd been preparing for this moment for months. I'm just a volunteer. I file paperwork and help with intake forms. That's what Dr. Martinez said, but Maya, the statistical correlation is remarkable. Patients you've interacted with show improvement rates that are unprecedented. She pulled out a tablet showing me charts and graphs. Look at this data. Chronic pain patients reporting 50% improvement after a single visit. Children with persistent infections clearing up overnight. Elderly patients with arthritis experiencing mobility improvements that typically take months of physical therapy. That's Dr. Martinez, I said. He's an excellent physician. He is. But Maya, I've been studying his patient outcomes for 5 years. These improvements only started appearing in the data after you began volunteering. Dr. Kim leaned forward. I think you have a gift, and I think you know it. The moment stretched between us. I could deny it, play dumb, continue hiding, or I could take the leap that would change everything. What kind of gift? I asked quietly. Dr. Kim's eyes lit up. That's what I'd like to help you find out. Would you be willing to participate in some controlled studies? Nothing invasive, just observation and documentation. If you truly have healing abilities. Healing abilities? The voice behind us made us both turn. Chloe stood there, backpack slung over her shoulder, eyes wide with shock. She'd obviously been eavesdropping. Maya has healing abilities? She repeated, her voice getting louder. What are you talking about? Dr. Kim looked between us. I'm sorry, are you family? I'm her sister. Chloe's mind was clearly racing. And I want to know what you mean by healing abilities. This was not how I'd planned to reveal my secret, but maybe it was better this way, organic, unplanned, impossible to fake. It's complicated, I started. Try me. Chloe's eyes were bright with something between fascination and calculation. Dr. Kim looked uncomfortable. Perhaps this conversation should include your parents. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Not yet. I looked at Chloe, seeing the wheels turning behind her eyes. She was already figuring out the implications, the possibilities, the ways she could use this information. Show me, Chloe said suddenly. What? Show me these healing abilities, right now. Dr. Kim started to protest, but I held up a hand. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to show everyone exactly what I was capable of. Fine, I said, but not here. We drove to the clinic in Dr. Kim's car, Chloe chattering excitedly the entire way. This is incredible, Maya. Do you know what this means? You could be famous, rich. You could have your own TV show, your own medical practice. Chloe, I said quietly, this isn't about money. Everything's about money, she replied automatically, then caught herself. I mean, not everything. But Maya, if you really can heal people, think about the possibilities. At the clinic, Dr. Martinez was waiting with a patient who'd volunteered for the demonstration. Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman with severe arthritis in her hands. Maya, Dr. Martinez said, his voice carefully neutral. Mrs. Chen is experiencing significant joint pain today. Would you mind assisting with her intake forms? I nodded, walking over to where Mrs. Chen sat. Her hands were visibly swollen, the joints twisted and inflamed. Hello, Mrs. Chen, I said softly, taking her hands in mine. Let me help you with the paperwork. The warmth flowed through me immediately, stronger than it had ever been before. Golden light seemed to emanate from where our skin touched, and I felt Mrs. Chen's pain like it was my own. Then felt it fade, dissolve, disappear. Mrs. Chen gasped. Oh my goodness! She pulled her hands back, staring at them in wonder. The swelling was visibly reduced, and when she flexed her fingers, they moved smoothly without pain. I don't understand, she whispered. They don't hurt anymore. Dr. Kim was frantically taking notes, her tablet recording everything. Dr. Martinez looked stunned, even though he'd witnessed my subtle healing before. But it was Chloe's reaction that caught my attention. Her face had gone through several emotions: amazement, excitement, and then something else, something calculating. Maya, she breathed, you're like a superhero. I helped Mrs. Chen complete her paperwork, then walked outside with my sister. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. How long? Chloe asked immediately. How long have you been able to do this? A few months. Since your birthday? Since the college fund thing? Her eyes were sharp. Is that why you've been so different? So confident? I didn't answer, but my silence was confirmation enough. Maya, this changes everything. Do you understand that? You don't need college. You don't need anything. You could make millions helping people. You could have your own clinic, your own research foundation. Actually, I said quietly, I already do. Chloe stopped walking. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her a website I'd been building in secret. The Martinez Foundation for Healing Research. I've been documenting my abilities working with Dr. Martinez and Dr. Kim to develop protocols for study and treatment. Chloe stared at the screen, scrolling through professional photos, research abstracts, and testimonials. But this looks like a real organization. It is. Maya, how did you? She looked up at me, confusion clear on her face. How did you build all this without anyone knowing? The same way I've been doing everything else. Carefully, strategically, while everyone underestimated me. I took back my phone and pulled up another screen, a bank account statement showing a balance that made Chloe's eyes widen. Donations, I explained. People I've helped. Families whose loved ones I've healed. Dr. Martinez has been helping me set up everything legally. Tax-exempt status, research protocols, ethical guidelines. How much? Chloe's voice was barely a whisper. $200,000, and growing. She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. You've been sitting on $200,000 this whole time? While I've been begging for $25,000? I've been building something meaningful while you've been scheming to take shortcuts. Chloe's face cycled through emotions, shock, admiration, and then, inevitably, resentment. So while I've been struggling, working retail jobs and saving every penny, my little sister has been secretly building a fortune? Her voice was getting harder. While I've been humiliated and dismissed by this family, you've been hiding the fact that you're some kind of medical miracle? Chloe, no, Maya, don't you dare. She stepped closer, her eyes bright with anger. You let me beg. You let me embarrass myself. Let Mom and Dad treat me like I'm worthless and irresponsible, all while you were sitting on this. You are irresponsible. I'm desperate. I've been desperate because I thought I had no options, no advantages, no way to succeed except by asking for help. Chloe's voice cracked. But you've had superpowers this whole time. I felt that familiar warmth building in my hands, but this time it felt different. Not just healing energy, but something more protective, more dangerous. They're not superpowers, Chloe. They're abilities I've worked hard to understand and control. Bullshit, she laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been playing games with all of us, acting like the responsible one, the mature one, while secretly you're some kind of freak. The word hit like a slap. Freak? What else would you call it? Normal people don't glow when they touch sick people, Maya. Normal people can't heal with their hands. Her voice was getting louder, more hysterical. You're a freak, and you've been lying to everyone about it. Something cold settled in my chest. Are you done? No, I'm not done. I want to know what else you've been hiding. What other secrets you've been keeping while judging the rest of us for being normal human beings with normal limitations. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. In my previous life, I died thinking she was selfish but ultimately loving. That her betrayal came from weakness, not malice. I'd been wrong. You want to know what else I've been hiding? I asked softly. I've been hiding the fact that I know exactly who you are, Chloe. I know that you don't love me. I know that you see me as nothing but a resource to exploit. I know that if I gave you everything I had, you'd still want more. That's not true, isn't it? Right now, finding out I have abilities that could help people, could change lives, could revolutionize medicine. Your first thought wasn't, how can we help people? It was, how can we make money? Chloe's mouth opened, then closed, because I was right and we both knew it. I've been hiding the fact that I see through you completely, I continued, that I know your tears are fake, your desperation is manufactured, and your love is conditional on what I can give you. Maya, and most importantly, I said, stepping closer, I've been hiding the fact that I remember everything. Chloe frowned. Remember what? Everything that happened before. Everything that's going to happen. My voice dropped to a whisper. Including the day you left me to die alone. The color drained from Chloe's face. What are you talking about? But I could see in her eyes that she understood. Somehow, on some level, she knew. You're insane, she whispered, backing away from me. You're completely insane. Maybe, I said, but I'm also powerful and I'm done pretending to be weak. I turned and walked back toward the clinic, leaving Chloe standing alone in the parking lot. Behind me, I heard her call out, "This isn't over, Maya." I didn't turn around, because she was right, it wasn't over. But now, finally, everyone knew exactly what they were dealing with, including me. The confrontation came 2 days later on a Saturday morning when our parents were grocery shopping. I was in my room reviewing applications for early medical school admission when Chloe burst through my door without knocking. Her face was flushed, her eyes wild with desperate determination. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. I didn't look up from my laptop. "About what?" "About us, about family, about the fact that you're sitting on a fortune while I'm working at Target for minimum wage." "You chose to get a job. I thought that was mature of you." Chloe laughed bitterly. "Mature? Maya, I'm making $8 an hour folding clothes while my sister has healing powers and $200,000 in the bank." I finally looked at her. And it's not fair. The words exploded out of her. It's not fair that you got some magical gift while I got nothing. It's not fair that you're building this amazing foundation while I can barely pay for gas. Life isn't fair, Chloe. You taught me that. She moved closer, her voice taking on that wheedling tone I knew so well, but it could be. Maya, we're family. We're supposed to help each other. Help each other? I closed my laptop and stood up. Like you helped me when I was dying? Chloe's face went pale. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I walked past her to my dresser, pulling out a small notebook I'd kept hidden. You want to know what I remember? Everything. I opened the notebook, revealing pages of careful handwriting, dates, times, conversations, a complete record of my previous life. I remember being 17 and alone in that hospital bed. I remember the nurse telling me my family was too busy to visit. I remember calling you, begging you to come, and you telling me you had a party to attend. Chloe shook her head frantically. Maya, you're scaring me. None of that happened. It did, and it will again if I let it. I closed the notebook, but I won't. You're talking about things that haven't happened, things that can't happen because you're 14. Her voice was getting shrill. You're having some kind of breakdown. Am I? I smiled, and I could see the expression frightened her. Then explain my foundation. Explain my abilities. Explain how I knew exactly what questions to ask that modeling agency to make them drop you. Chloe stared at me, and I saw the moment she truly understood. Her little sister wasn't just different. She was dangerous. You've been planning this, she whispered. All of it. The investments, the foundation, sabotaging my opportunities. You've been manipulating everyone. I've been protecting myself. From what? From family who loves you? From family who would use me. I sat back down, completely calm. But here's what I don't understand, Chloe. Even now, knowing what I can do, knowing what I've built, your first instinct is still to take it from me. That's not, isn't it? You haven't asked about my abilities or whether I'm okay. You haven't asked about the people I've helped or the research I'm doing. You've only asked how you can benefit from it. Chloe's mask was slipping again. You're my sister. Your success should be my success. Why? The simple question stopped her cold. Because we're family. What have you ever done for me that wasn't about what you could get in return? Silence. I'm going to make you an offer, I said finally. One time only. Hope flickered in Chloe's eyes. I'll give you $50,000, cash, no strings attached. Her face lit up. Maya, but, I continued, you have to do something for me first. Anything. I want you to admit the truth. To me, to mom and dad, to yourself. I want you to admit that you've never loved me, that you've only ever seen me as a resource to exploit. Chloe's expression froze. Maya, that's not true. Then say no to the money. The words hung in the air between us. Chloe's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I can't, Maya. $50,000 would change my life. There it is. I leaned back in my chair. You can't even pretend to care about me when money's on the table. That's not fair, isn't it? If you loved me, you'd be concerned about my welfare. You'd want to know if these abilities are dangerous, if I'm in pain, if I need help. Instead, you're calculating how to cash in. Chloe's face crumpled. I do love you. I need help, Maya. I need this chance. No. The word was quiet but final. Maya, please. No. I'll do anything. Maya, I'm your sister. No, you're not. I stood up and walked to my door, opening it. You're someone who shares my DNA, but you're not my sister. Chloe stared at me, tears streaming down her face. You can't mean that. I can, and I do. I looked at her calmly. I remember dying alone because of you. I remember the pain, the fear, the betrayal, and I remember promising myself that if I ever got a second chance, I wouldn't waste it on people who don't value me. But I do value you. You value what I can give you. That's not the same thing. Chloe walked toward the door, then stopped. What if I change? What if I prove to you that I can be better? Then you'll be better for your own sake, not mine. I met her eyes. I'm done, Chloe. I'm done being your safety net, your backup plan, your source of emergency funds. I'm done being your victim. Maya, I'm going to medical school. I'm going to use my abilities to help people who deserve it. I'm going to build a life that matters. I stepped aside so she could leave. You should do the same. Chloe hesitated at the threshold. This is really it? You're really cutting me off? I'm freeing both of us. You from the temptation to use me, and me from the obligation to let you. She walked out without another word, but I wasn't done yet. That evening, I called a family meeting. I have some things to tell you, I said, sitting across from my parents in the living room. Chloe was noticeably absent. She'd left the house after our conversation and hadn't returned. I told them everything about my abilities, about the foundation, about my plans for medical school. I showed them my bank statements, my research documentation, my acceptance letters to accelerated programs. Dad stared at the papers in silence. Mom kept shaking her head. Maya, she finally said, why didn't you tell us? Because I needed to be sure about my abilities, about my plans, about whether I could trust you to support me instead of exploit me. Exploit you? Dad looked hurt. Maya, we would never Wouldn't you? I pulled out my notebook. In my previous life, you took my college fund to pay for Chloe's modeling career. When I got sick, you were too busy with her launch party to visit me in the hospital. I died alone because you chose her over me. Maya, that never happened. It did. And without my intervention, it would happen again. I looked at both of them. So I changed things. I protected myself. I built something you couldn't take away. Mom was crying now. We love you both equally. Do you? Because every time Chloe asked for something, you gave it to her. Every time I needed something, you told me to be understanding, to be patient, to put family first. The truth hung in the air like a physical presence. Well, now I'm putting myself first, I continued. I'm going to medical school. I'm going to use my abilities to help people. And I'm going to do it without depending on a family that would sacrifice me for Chloe's benefit. Dad's voice was quiet. What do you want from us? Nothing, I said honestly. I don't need your money, your connections, or your approval. I just need you to stop trying to make me responsible for Chloe's happiness. Maya, Mom said. She's your sister. No. The word was final. She's your daughter. Your responsibility, not mine. I stood up, gathering my papers. I'm 17. In 8 months, I'll be 18 and legally independent. I've already been accepted to 3 medical programs with full scholarships. I have my own foundation, my own resources, my own future. I looked at them both, feeling nothing but calm certainty. You can choose to be part of that future or not, but you can't choose to sabotage it. Not anymore. Later that night, Chloe came home. I heard her talking to our parents in hushed, desperate tones. I heard crying, pleading, the familiar sound of her manipulation. But this time, I didn't care. I had power now, real power. And I wasn't going to waste it on people who'd already shown me exactly who they were. My hands glowed softly in the darkness as I worked on my research notes, planning a future where I healed people who deserved it and ignored those who didn't. The reckoning was complete. Now it was time for a new beginning. 2 years later, I stood in the lecture hall at Johns Hopkins Medical School, my hands steady as I presented my research on accelerated cellular regeneration to a room full of distinguished doctors and researchers. The applications are limitless, I said, clicking to my final slide. Cancer treatment, trauma recovery, organ regeneration. We're looking at a complete revolution in how we approach healing. The applause was thunderous. Dr. Kim, now my research partner and mentor, beamed from the front row. At 19, I was the youngest person ever accepted into their combined MD-PhD program, and my work was already being published in major medical journals. After the presentation, I walked across campus to my apartment, a modest place I'd chosen specifically because it felt like home. Real home, not the suffocating environment I'd grown up in. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, my study partner, and something more. Incredible presentation today. Dinner to celebrate? I smiled, typing back, yes, but somewhere quiet. I'm exhausted from being brilliant all day. His response came immediately. Your place, I'll cook, you rest. This was what love looked like, I'd learned. Not demands or manipulation, but genuine care. Marcus had known about my abilities from the beginning. I'd been honest with him from our first coffee date. And his reaction had been wonder, not calculation. He asked how he could support my research, not how he could profit from it. The contrast with my family couldn't have been starker. I pulled up the news alert I'd received that morning, the one I'd been too busy to read during my presentation. The headline made me pause. Local woman arrested for insurance fraud. The photo showed Chloe being led away in handcuffs. According to the article, she'd been caught filing false claims for injuries that didn't exist, using her minimum wage job's health insurance to cover expensive treatments she didn't need. The investigation had revealed a pattern of deception dating back months. I stared at the photo for a long moment, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no anger. Just a distant acknowledgement that people who chose to live dishonestly eventually faced consequences. My phone rang, Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message while making tea. Maya, honey, I know you said you didn't want us to call, but Chloe's in real trouble. She needs bail money and a lawyer, and Maya, we can't afford it. Your father's heart surgery last year wiped out our savings, and I deleted the message without finishing it. Dad's heart surgery. The one I'd known was coming because I could sense his condition years ago. The one they'd been able to afford because I'd anonymously donated the money to their insurance company to cover the costs. They'd never known it was me. That was the difference between us. I helped people without needing credit or recognition. They only helped when there was something in it for them. My laptop chimed with an email from the Martinez Foundation. The organization had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We now had facilities in 3 states and had helped over 10,000 patients. The email was from a mother whose child I'd helped treat for leukemia. Dr. Martinez, I don't know if you remember us, but you saved my daughter's life 2 years ago. She's now cancer-free and thriving in high school. She wants to become a doctor, like you. I wanted you to know that you didn't just heal her body. You gave her hope. Thank you for everything. This was why I'd been given a second chance. Not for revenge, but for purpose. Marcus arrived with groceries and a bottle of wine, his dark eyes warm as he kissed my cheek. How does it feel to be the most brilliant person in Maryland? Exhausting, I said honestly, leaning against him. But worth it. Any word from your family about the presentation? I shook my head. They stopped reaching out when I made it clear I wasn't interested in funding their emergencies. Do you miss it? Having a family? I considered the question while he cooked. I miss the idea of family, the fantasy I had when I was younger, but I don't miss the reality of being someone's ATM. Marcus nodded, understanding. He'd grown up in foster care, so he knew the difference between blood relatives and chosen family. Besides, I added, I have family now. Dr. Kim, the research team, the patients who trust me with their lives. You. He smiled, stirring the pasta. Speaking of which, I have news. Good news. The NIH approved my application. Full funding for 4 years to work on regenerative medicine research. I felt that familiar warmth in my chest. Not healing energy, but pure joy. Marcus, that's incredible. It gets better. They want to partner with the Martinez Foundation. We'd be working together, officially. I threw my arms around him, laughing. This was what success felt like when you built it honestly, when you surrounded yourself with people who valued you for who you were, not what you could give them. After dinner, we sat on my balcony overlooking the city. The lights stretched out below us like stars, and I felt a deep sense of peace. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd made different choices? Marcus asked. No, I said without hesitation. I know exactly what would have happened. I'd be dead. That's dark. It's truth. In my previous life, I was too weak to protect myself. Too desperate for love to recognize manipulation. I died because I couldn't say no to people who saw me as expendable. I looked out at the city, at the lights that represented thousands of lives I might someday help heal. This time, I chose differently. I chose myself. My phone buzzed again. Another call from Mom. I declined it and turned off the phone entirely. Are you sure you don't want to talk to them? Marcus asked gently. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they have, but I've changed too. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I can let go of anger without letting them back into my life. I curled up against him, feeling safe and loved in a way I'd never experienced in my previous life. Besides, I said, I have everything I need right here. Purpose, love, the ability to help people who genuinely need it. Why would I risk that for people who've already shown me exactly who they are? Marcus kissed the top of my head. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm just someone who learned from her mistakes. Not everyone gets that chance. No, I agreed, not everyone does. Later that night, as Marcus slept beside me, I lay awake thinking about second chances and the power of choice. In my previous life, I'd been a victim of other people's decisions. This time, I'd taken control of my own destiny. Tomorrow, I would wake up and continue my research. I would heal people who deserved healing. I would build a legacy of helping others build their own strength, their own healing, their own futures. And somewhere across town, Chloe would wake up in a jail cell, finally facing the consequences of a lifetime of choices built on manipulation and entitlement. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, no anger at my parents' continued dysfunction. I felt only the deep, abiding peace that came from knowing I'd broken the cycle. I'd chosen healing over revenge, growth over stagnation, love over manipulation. And in doing so, I'd finally found what I'd been searching for in both lives: a family that valued me, a purpose that fulfilled me, and the power to protect both. My hands glowed softly in the darkness, not with healing energy this time, but with the quiet light of someone who'd finally found her way home.